Good afternoon, and welcome to the City Club of Portland's Friday Forum. I'm Pat McCormick, president of the City Club, and I'd like to welcome members and guests alike, those of you who join us today at the Governor Hotel, and those of you who are listening on OPB Radio or watching on Portland Community Media's CityNet 30. Today, Mayor Charlie Hales will discuss the state of the city. But first, some announcements. The generous support of City Club's corporate and media partners ensures we put on the state's best civic programs week after week. I'd like to thank our media partners, including Oregon Business Magazine, and our Friday Forum spring corporate sponsors, Morel Inc., Northwest Natural, and Schwabe Williamson and Wyatt. We're grateful for your support and commitment to City Club's mission. Please join us in a round of applause. And join us next week when Congressman Kurt Schrader discusses immigration reform. Tickets are now on sale for that event and for our upcoming Civic Salon series, where our provocateurs will discuss the future of Portland. Our civic salons bring people together for enjoyment, education, and the exchange of ideas, complete with good food and drinks. You can learn more about City Club events, purchase tickets, and become a member on our website, pdxcityclub.org. You received in your email today, and those of you who are not members, you can see on our website and become a member there, the City Club report, Invisible Enemies, Reducing Air Toxics in the Portland Airshed. It was published today. The report is available online, and members will vote Friday, May 3rd at 11:45 on the report. We will be having a question and answer session with Mayor Hales at the end of today's programs. Members, please come to the microphone to ask your questions. For all audience members, please locate the index cards at the center of your table and write your questions on them during the forum. We will collect them prior to the start of the question and answer period. Charlie Hales was sworn in as mayor of Portland at the beginning of January. During his first months in office, a budget deficit of approximately $25 million for 2013-14 has dominated his agenda. Hales will speak to us about his priorities and efforts to address the city's economic problems. Charlie is on the board of Friends of the Trees and the Portland Parks Foundation. He's been a smart reader, volunteered at Meals on Wheels, and served on the Portland Public Market Committee. His work has been honored by the Brunner Foundation for Urban Excellence, the American Society of Landscape Architects, the Oregon chapter of the American Planning Association, the League of Oregon Cities, and the Portland Bicycle Transportation Alliance. Please help me welcome Mayor Charlie Hales.
Thank you, Pat, and thank you, City Club. It's a privilege to be here. It's an honor to be here in this thoughtful forum where so many people for so many years have come together with high standards for public dialogue and ideas. So thank you for inviting me here today. Sam, I want to thank you as well for creating connections between City Hall and our citizens, between people and ideas and action, and for your continued service to our community here. Thank you, Sam. I want to thank a number of elected officials who are here. I'll probably miss some because of the number of people who streamed in, but I'm very honored that Chair Kogan from Multnomah County, along with Commissioners Kafoury and Smith and McKeel are here. I'm honored that Senator Jenny Burdick and Representative Jennifer Williamson are here. We have members of the Portland Public School Board, Bobby Regan and Greg Belisle. Don't take that personally, Greg. We have an amazing number of appointed leaders of major public institutions here, including Vim Vavell from Portland State University, Preston Pulliams from Portland Community College, and Carol Smith from Portland Public School District number 1. Again, no doubt I've missed some of you, and I don't want to miss the last one that I want to introduce at all. I want to especially thank former Mayor Bud Clark for being here. Let's hear it for these leaders. And I will talk about them more specifically in a little while, but I'm honored to serve with and be joined here today by your City Council, and I'd like to ask them to stand: Commissioner Nick Fish, Commissioner Amanda Fritz, Commissioner Steve Novick, and Commissioner Dan Saltzman. Thank you very much. Along with our excellent auditor, Levon Griffin-Valade, these people serve you very well, and I'm honored to serve with them. My great staff is here today, the recent star of a wonderful Oregonian story, and a bunch of people who otherwise prefer to work behind the scenes. Gail Shibley and my excellent team of staff, please stand. And some of my family is here today. Nancy and I have this amazing gang of 5 children, and 3 of them are here: Rob and Carolyn and Gavin. Thank you for coming. And of course, a woman who manages to balance a pretty impressive job at Portland State University, the responsibilities of being a mom and a member of our family, and now the new responsibility, which she's carrying out so well, First Lady of the City of Portland, Nancy Hales. Thank you. When I was 16 and my parents were the age that I am now, my dad had a crazy idea of building a house, not just any house. Dad was a structural engineer, and this house was going to stand. They bought a piece of property in the Blue Ridge Mountains that had the ruins of an old stone grist mill on it. It had been built in 1776, burned down by Phil Sheridan after his sojourn in Oregon, and left as a ruin for 100 years. And they bought this property, and instead of building a normal house, my dad said, let's rebuild those stone walls and then log the property partially and take the wood and build an oak post and beam structure on top of those stone walls. That was a big job. And I spent several summers as a teenager in the hot Virginia buggy air laying stone with my father. We figured at the end of the job that we'd moved about 1 million pounds of stone. I think I can still feel the sore muscles sometimes, but I did learn to cherish that experience. And a lot of what we do in City Hall, I think, relates to that. We clear away rubble. We adapt structures that were functional for the needs of last year or the last decade or even the last century to the needs of the present day, and the needs and visions that we have as a community for tomorrow. Thanks to my dad, I know a little bit about how to build for tomorrow and how to do some heavy lifting, and thus, present from my friends, the carpenters, my tool belt. I do my building now in Portland, and Portland is unique. Now that's an overused word, but here it really fits, and it fits to how we build this place for us. Look at other cities. They tend to build things to attract attention, like a Space Needle or a St. Louis Arch. We build the world's greatest rose garden, light rail, and waterfront park, not to attract attention from others, but to improve the quality of life for Portlanders. Portland is now a home to 600,000 people, the work of many hands. I'm one of those builders, along with many of you in this room, and I want to assure you that we are not done building a great city. We are not done creating a livable place. We are not done with bold plans, and we've got them. But first, some repairs are in order. As Pat said, the City of Portland is facing a major budget shortfall, now estimated at about $21.5 million for next year's budget. Now, you know, the City of Portland is a company that runs on about $2 billion a year of total revenue. The general fund, the one that we talk about the most, that pays for police and fire and parks and other basic services, that's about $500 million. So we're a big organization. You would expect us to have a substantial contingency fund ready to fall back on. What do we have to fall back on? Well, that's our next problem. The contingency fund of the City of Portland for the general fund on April 1st was $65,421. 65 grand in the coffee can on April Fool's Day. Yeah, we noticed that. April Fool's Day on us. And that's not enough, in case any of you were wondering. Now, you're not supposed to do visuals at the City Club, but I've already violated that rule. So this lectern is about 50 inches high. If this was the general fund, and this was our contingency fund, that would represent our current situation. Feel better? Now, radio audience, what I did is I set a piece of paper on the floor beside the podium. You can't see it, but don't worry, no one here can see it either, and that's the point. So how did we get to this situation? The people voted, I did too, for a Multnomah County Library District, and then the bizarre machinations of compression shifted about $9 million from the city to the county. The City of Portland is part of a joint agreement with the United States Department of Justice that will add about $5 million in costs to what we do. And there's been a practice on the City Council, which I've participated in, of allocating one-time money in the budget again and again and again, and pretending somehow that it's still one time. So giving this litany that I've just given you, you might ask yourself a couple of questions. One, why did I want to be mayor? And two, why am I up here smiling? Because we have a lot going for us. That's the message that I'm here to talk about today. Yes, we're at a challenging point, but it's going to be okay. We're going to watch out for each other, get through this, and in many ways be better because of how we address this challenge. We will balance our budget in a humane and responsible way because that's what's written down in the social contract. What do I mean by that? What's the social contract? It's an agreement that we all, in effect, sign. We sign it again and again, all the time, even without knowing it. It's between neighbors. It's between our city and our 600,000 residents and the people that live and work around us. It's between our city and the region, between us and the rest of Oregon, between the mayor and the rest of the council, between the Portland of today and historic Portland, as well as with future Portlanders. When I think about that house that my father and I built, the social contract is the foundation. Everything else rests on that. The social contract is about many things. It's about equity. It's about livability. It's about opportunity. A vision of a city where we share a great park system, great public schools that provide a good education for all of our kids, and a local economy that makes it possible to live the good life here. My team and I, this council, my staff, the many public employees who are here in the room who manage our public services, we've focused our effort in the last few months on three urgent challenges, three areas where we need to shore up that social contract and make Portland more true to that shared vision. First, a city budget that focuses on basic services and delivers them in an effective way, even with limited resources. Second, adequate public school funding for Portland and for the rest of our state. And third, a safe city with a relationship of trust between Portlanders and our police officers. First, to the budget. I'll release my mayor's proposed budget on Tuesday of next week, and we'll begin the formal process of consideration of that budget by the City Council. That document, that's now in final draft, is based on 5 principles. First, that the City Council should operate like a board of directors. All 5 of us think about the whole enterprise, ask the hard questions, make the choices for the whole organization, not just for our own bureaus. Second, don't let a good crisis go to waste. There are always practices that need to change and problems that haven't been taken up yet. We've had to do that in this budget. Third, a citizens budget that focuses on basic services. Fourth, a principle of shared sacrifice among all our bureaus. No one is safe from scrutiny, and there are no sacred cows. And honest budgeting, that the public should see how we spend their money. Even though the document is complex, we should try to be transparent. So some specifics about those 5 principles. A board of directors. This council has operated as your board of directors. First, I assigned all the bureaus to myself, as I said I would do, and that freed all of us to ask those hard questions and be creative. But we've gone beyond that. The council has also operated with a couple of subcommittees that looked into specific areas like reducing overtime and rewarding innovation. They did great work. You've been very well served by the other 4 members of the City Council in this budget process. Second, we're not letting the crisis go to waste. We're changing old practices and putting incentives in the budget for saving money and doing things more efficiently next year. Third, a citizens budget that focuses on basic services. We have reduced overhead and focused on street-level services in the budget that we'll release next week. Fourth, a shared sacrifice. We started this budget process by telling every bureau, come in with a budget that is 90% of what you would have spent this year if you just carried forward, and then defend every possible addition above that 90% base. That was tough for our bureau managers and for our staff to do, but it has sweated out the opportunities and helped us to prioritize the difficult choices. Honest budgeting, here's just one example. There's been a long-standing practice in the city of having bureaus pay for some of the city commissioners and mayor's staffs by agreements between them. It's kind of a form of tribute. And we've said, nonsense. Let's have the elected officials and their staffs in the general fund budget, a single line item, so the public can understand it. Aside from the public understanding it, it will also help us to always remember that we're overhead. And it's good that we remember that. The second of those key priorities, education. I've been around this issue for a while as a parent and as an advocate for so many school funding crises, and then most recently, going door to door, 25,000 doors in that political campaign to serve as your mayor. And I talked to so many young parents on their doorstep. Every time the door opened and I saw Legos on the floor, I had essentially the same conversation. We love this city. We love this neighborhood. We want to stay here, but is the community going to make a 12-year commitment to us that the school in our neighborhood is going to be a great choice for our child? We have to be able to answer that question with a yes. And that's why I'm very proud of our city council. When we sat down together in the first month and devised our legislative priorities for this session of the legislature, our number 1 priority, the city of Portland's number 1 priority, is adequate school funding. And I'm proud of your city council for taking that stand and making that the first priority. In the second month of this term, I started gathering Oregon mayors from around the state to join this cause. And in fact, 50 of them have signed up to help. From Portland to Prineville to Pilot Rock, from Coquille to Culver to Klamath Falls, we have 50 mayors working together to advocate for school funding in Salem. When was the last time that those 50 cities agreed on anything, much less worked together, not on our budgets, but for our kids in our communities? Because these mayors share my belief in the social contract. They know that I don't think of Portland as an island, but as part of a region and part of a state where we work together in partnership, and they believe that the school funding priority is more important than anything else on our own wish lists. The legislature is stepping up to this challenge and to the advocacy from you and me and so many other people. And we're not done, but there's a budget proposal on the table in this session of the legislature that will hold the line in school funding. And they deserve our thanks and support and our strong encouragement that it must get done. The social contract is also about a certain level of public safety. If we're sticking with that metaphor about the house, this is the roof. This is what protects us. One level of public safety is this: the police will protect us, but they don't do it alone. They can't solely provide public safety. The police get called only at the worst times. The rest of the time we protect each other, and that is the very definition of a city. People who feel safe among strangers and share a common purpose to make this a good and safe place. If we do this right, people engage, and if we don't, they hunker down. You can tell a lot about how well the people of a city protect each other by how engaged they are, and by that measure, Portland is a very safe place. And by other metrics too. Person and property crime in the city of Portland are down 13% from last year to this. But another level of the social contract is this: we shouldn't feel the need to be protected from the police. Now, this is a tough subject. It's polarizing, but in general, it means our police officers sign the social contract too. Together, that contract helps us as we craft specific policies, for example, on the use of force. It means that we find ways to help people suffering from mental illness, find ways to help the homeless. It means that people of color trust the police and won't be surprised that the officer that they call upon for help actually looks like them. In my first 60 days of office, we had 2 officer-involved shootings. One involved a man who charged police officers, dashing at them from yards away in a darkened parking lot, holding something that he had indicated was a gun. And he actually counted down as he raced towards them, 3, 2, 1, and they fired and killed him. And it turned out that the thing in his hand was only a broken telephone receiver. The second incident involved a man who drove up behind 2 parked patrol cars, climbed out, pulled out a shotgun, and then fired at those officers, who then were forced to shoot and kill him. These are terrible events for any community, but they're terrible for the officers involved too. So that's part of the social contract. The police protect us, and we look out for them. They need to know that the mayor and the city council have their backs, and we do. And while we support them in this difficult work that they do, we expect to see important changes in assuring that we practice peacekeeping and de-escalation in every possible circumstance. We are already moving with Chief Reese's leadership to change the Portland Police Bureau's policies and practices, crisis intervention training, mobile crisis units where we will pair a mental health professional with a specially trained officer in each of our precincts. New policies for the use of force and for tasers are already being applied to our training program for our officers. We're not there yet, but we're on our way, and I appreciate the good work that's being done to change the culture, practice, and level of trust between the Portland Police Bureau and our community. So far, so good, Chief. Thank you. Another aspect of public safety is this: there are too many guns on the street, period. I want common sense, practical laws, a restoration of the assault weapons ban, universal background checks, guns prohibited from schools and from public buildings. I'm not the only one that wants that. Thank you. In my first month in office, I joined about 800 other mayors from throughout the United States as part of a group called Mayors Against Illegal Guns. And then I testified in favor of Senator Burdick's bills at the Oregon legislature, along with the governor and the chief. Senator Jenny Burdick, thank you for being here and for your leadership on this important issue. These bills would require universal background checks, keep guns out of our schools and public buildings, and require more training for concealed carry permits. Those are reasonable and appropriate. And yesterday, Multnomah County Jeff Cogan and the County Board of Commissioners unanimously voted on an ordinance designed to keep guns away from children and to put some limits on where guns, loaded guns, can be carried and discharged. Chair Cogan and the County Board of Commissioners, thank you. For our local and state leaders, we don't have the authority that the Congress has. We all want the Congress to act, but we're using the tools we have to make a difference. There's an old Virginia expression, sometimes attributed to Teddy Roosevelt, but it was actually a Virginian who said it first. Do what you can with what you have, where you are. And that's what these leaders are doing. Thank you for the progress. Now you can do something about guns too. 2 weeks from tomorrow, we will have at 162nd and Burnside the annual gun turn-in, a joint effort of our public safety professionals and Ceasefire Oregon. So I invite anyone who's got a gun around the house that don't see any good reason for it to be there to take advantage of that. And as we have collected thousands of guns in the past, we hope to collect many more this time. 162nd and Burnside, 2 weeks from tomorrow, be there, and we'll thank you. Now, will these efforts eliminate gun violence? Of course not. Are they a sensible start? Of course they are. That's the principle here. Do something. Act now. That's part of our social contract. Now, this isn't just a national issue. It's local and personal. Gun violence is here, too. It was at Clackamas Town Center. It's in our homes and neighborhoods. And 4 weeks ago, Edward J. Payden, Jr. was gunned down in broad daylight, 2 o'clock in the afternoon at 60th and Killingsworth. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable that our young men die this way. And that's why I'm so proud and happy to announce that thanks to the leadership of Antoinette Edwards and Tom Peavy and our youth violence prevention team at the city, we've been awarded a National League of Cities grant for black male achievement. Thanks to them and a wide variety of community partners, we've joined together to make this happen. Now, I'm proud of the leadership from the mayor's office, but it's a win for the whole community. So let's hear it for Tom and Antoinette and all of our partners. We have a social contract with each and every one of those young men, too. The social contract is just that. It's a handshake of mutual responsibility. It says that if I, the taxpayer, give you, the city, my hard-earned dollars, I expect you to use them well, do the things that you said you would do, and spend my funds in the light of day. With any luck, and with a lot of heavy lifting by my friends on the City Council and by our city employees, I'll be able to come back here next year and tell you that our house passes inspection. I hope that talking about the house that my dad had us build isn't uninteresting to you. It's not an original metaphor, I realize. You actually don't have to go to any greater authority than this. In the Old Testament, it says, a man must get his house in order. And that's what we're about here. That's what we're doing in our social contract. And that's what I came to tell you about today. Or maybe that's what you told me when you gave me the privilege of this office. We have a social contract to do the right thing and to do it well. Just as building that house with my dad wasn't a solo performance, I always remember that we accomplished little by ourselves. You can rely on me to continue to do this work in a spirit of collaboration, in barn-raising style with other governments, Multnomah County, Metro, our school districts, the state legislature, our congressional delegation, and a huge network of private and nonprofit partners who make Portland a better place. That's the spirit of the social contract. In those ways, we'll meet these challenges and put Portland's house in order, hammer together a lean but responsible and sustainable city budget, build trust between our police officers and our citizens, lay down a base of reliable and sustainable funding for our public schools, and shelter us all under reasonable regulations for the presence of guns in our urban neighborhoods. Having done so, we'll move on in the next few months to other challenges and opportunities. The future of the Portland Development Commission, dealing effectively and humanely with the epidemic of panhandling and homelessness, getting that Portland public market built, building streets and sidewalks where they're missing, making good on the social contract with the neighborhoods of East Portland, just as we will with Eastmoreland, Ladd's Addition, and Irvington. Cleaning up our river, not just spending a lot of money, planning how we will. And building a stronger economy here in Portland so that all our young people have hope and opportunity. Last week, Nancy and I attended this gathering at a small prototyping business in the Central East Side called ADX. And it was the launch party for a website and a consortium called Portland Made. And it was an amazing gathering. And I think, frankly, that I was the only one from the Portland establishment in the room. And without insulting my wife, I'd say the two of us raised the average age just a tad by being there. Because it was all a bunch of 20 and 30-somethings, most of whom had chosen to come to Portland, and all of whom were starting businesses to make things and sell them to the world. I wish you could have felt the energy and the creativity in that room. It was truly amazing. And it was so inspiring to me. And somewhere in that crowd is the next Nike, and they're not leaving Portland. They're staying here. And we walked out of that gathering into the twilight of one of these spring evenings where you're never sure what weather you're going to get. There are pink clouds in the sky and water on the streets. And I just had this overwhelming feeling of what a fortunate man I am to hold this office at this point in Portland's history. We're a great place, built over a long time and now on the rise. We love this place, and to an incredible extent, we believe in the common good and the virtue of our neighbors. We look around and we see the beauty of this city, the land and the water that enfold it, and we revel in just how lucky we are to live here. To be mayor of such a place is a privilege, and I'm a happy man to have the responsibility of picking up the tools and working with all of you to make it better. Thank you to the City Club, to my staff, and to the 6,000 people at the City of Portland who serve you as city employees, to my family, to my fellow elected officials. Thank you, Portland. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor Hales, for that inspirational opportunity to see what lies ahead. We'll be looking forward to the distribution of your document. And now, if you have a written question on an index card, please hold it up high so that the City Club staff can collect it from you. Thank you. The first question for our speaker, as always, will be from today's Friday Forum board host, Leslie Moorhead. Leslie is on the club's board of governors, and she served as the club's secretary from 2010 to 2012, and was named the Member of the Year in 2010. Leslie?
Thank you, Pat. Mr. Mayor, congratulations on your recent election. I see you've jumped in feet first. It's an honor to be able to ask you a question here. You'll probably get a lot of questions today about policy, a city policy towards a variety of things. And I want to ask you specifically about policy towards West Hayden Island. And to answer the question, what is your position on the future mixed use, perhaps we'd call it a compromise, policy decision to be made on the combined rail to marine to rail use in the industrial part of it, and then serious protection of the very sensitive environmental areas. Now, asking that question, I'd like you to focus on two aspects of it that I think will educate all of us. First one is that I don't live on Haven Island and I don't go out there very much. And I'm probably like most Portlanders who are not following this issue so closely. So can you give us a thumbnail sketch on what Portlanders need to know about the concerns surrounding the West Haven Island discussion? And secondly, I presume there'll be an impact from the Columbia River crossing on Hayden Island, and can you describe what that would be for us under the various scenarios?
Yes. I actually have a fairly simplistic sounding, and it might actually be simplistic, approach to this complex issue for the moment. The Planning Commission has been working on a proposal for West Hayden Island for some time. It's scheduled to come to the City Council soon. And normally, I'm a table-pounding advocate that the way to do planning right is do the land use first and the transportation second. Figure out the place, figure out how to serve it with transportation, planning 101. In this case, I actually, for a little while, want to apply the opposite principle, which is that the Columbia River crossing is such a huge impact on Hayden Island and on a lot of other things too, that if it happens, it will change that island in profound ways. If it doesn't happen, that's a big factor as well, and we should wait and determine what we want to do about West Hayden Island only after we finally know if the Columbia River crossing is going to be built or not. Now, I think we're going to know that in probably the next 30 days, because either the Washington legislature steps up and funds their piece of the consortium, as the Oregonian did some table pounding about themselves on the editorial page today, or they don't. If they don't, it's time to say enough. This is the world's most expensive shelf study, and we're sorry, but one way or another, in 30 days, we're going to know if this project is alive or dead. And then turn to the question of the future of West Hayden Island and its role in the region, its role in economic development, and its role as both a natural place and part of a neighborhood. I don't think that it's responsible to take a shot on Hayden Island until we know if the CRC is going to happen or not. So I've reversed the order and said, let's find out what the DOTs are going to do or not do, and then decide.
We will now take questions from the floor. As always, we invite members to the microphone to ask their question. Asking questions at the Friday Forum microphone is a privilege of City Club membership, and City Club membership, for those of you who are not members, is open to all. Before asking your question, identify yourself as a City Club member, and please ask only one question, and ask it as succinctly as possible. If I flash this little question mark card, it means please wrap up your question. Jeannie?
Thank you for being here, Mayor. Jeannie Crouch, City Club member. You spoke at length of the social contract, and I can appreciate all of the things that are on your plate right now. But looking out a little bit farther after that budget is in place, can you speak to what are the steps that you see that the city can take to encourage larger businesses in Portland and to encourage employment that would help us raise the average income level within the city?
Very good question. And I think there's several levels on which we make a difference. One is by carefully controlling the costs of doing business here. Cost is a factor, so things like water rates have gotten a great deal of attention in the budget work that we've been doing. Cost of time and difficulty of going through our building permit process. I'm very pleased that we're making great progress in the Bureau of Development Services on not only staffing up for the new demand for construction in the city, one of the few places in city government where we'll be adding employees in this situation because it's customer service and it's paid for by people who get building permits. And we're also moving swiftly to paperless building permits, something I talked about in this room at a debate last year. We're actually going to get there. So there's a customer service and environment side of things. Then again, look at that story, or think about that story I talked about with ADX. The quality of life here, the fact that we are a welcoming and open place for people to start businesses has some intangibles in it And we need to think about those as well as the tangible things. But the spirit of the place, of being somewhere where you can start anew and make a place for yourself, is very important. Then translating that into specific policies and practices like little loan programs at the Portland Development Commission that don't put us at great risk with millions of dollars, but leverage a lot of new momentum among new players in the business community. And then we'll still try for the big plays. I meant what I said in the newspaper, that piece of land on the south waterfront that's going to be served by light rail, streetcar, an aerial tram, has a view of Mount Hood, and is on a clean river, is the best in the country. Take that, Dallas. Take that, Baltimore. Nobody's got this. So that's a great piece of property. We'll market it to somebody that wants to make a big play there. It'll just have a different logo than it might have had otherwise.
Thank you for coming and for your message. Carol Witherell, City Club member. I, as an educator and citizen, am very concerned about the inequitable impact on many low-income families and individuals regarding and communities as a result of Measure 11, especially the mandatory minimum sentencing that is in the hands of DAs rather than judges at this time, and also the mandating of juveniles into adult prisons. Many lives have been destroyed in families and communities as a result of this, and I'm afraid we aren't aware fully of the impact on many communities. Do you and the City Council talk about this issue, and what more as citizens can we do to inform each other?
Thank you. Very good. Yeah, I share your concern, and I think actually that your County Board of Commissioners and your City Council share it as well. And that's why we're trying to do some very constructive work together about the criminal justice system. Commissioner Novick, in particular, on our council, has talked about ways to reduce the prison expense and trade that off for better investments in mental health and other upstream improvements in people's lives. There's a real ferment of creativity around these ideas, both here at the city and the county, as well as with the governor and legislative leaders like the ones that are here in this room. So I think although the people approved Measure 11, there's now both the room and the mandate to modify it, get to things that will work better, while still making sure that seriously dangerous people go to jail. They are still out there. I mentioned one of them who we're still hunting for, who killed young E.J. Payton. So I think we can make Measure 11 more cost-effective, even without directly overturning it. And I believe that's the direction that the governor and the legislature are trying to go. And they'll need creative partnerships with everyone from district attorneys to county sheriffs, to police chiefs, to social services agencies, and we're now trying to put that very partnership together to try to make those things work here and to make Portland and Multnomah County a model of how to do this for the rest of the state. Thank you very much.
Chris Andre, City Club member, thanks so much for being here. It's wonderful to hear your words, particularly the two words social contract. That's my question is, it's very easy to speak about a social contract, but what's the architecture that when you've got the violence that underlies what the last question person was speaking about, and people who are comfortable and can't, it's so easy to say these words. How do you, that's another gap that needs to be bridged. How do you propose to accomplish that?
Well, I think we are trying, and I believe we are making some headway at thinking about equity in everything we do, in about how we spend money, in about how our parks programs reach young people across the community, about how the criminal justice system works. So I think there is a strong consciousness among our local leaders that equity is not just a nice word, it has to turn into real things. And again, commendations to Mayor Adams. One of the things he started was a process of mapping how the city spends its money so that we know and can look at where the dollars are going and be plain spoken about that as well. Commissioner Fish has been strongly advocating for finishing the job of parks in East Portland, because that's an underserved part of the city. That's an equity issue, and we will do that. We will pass another parks bond measure, and we will continue that work.
Kurt Wavering, member. You mentioned that in improving the police force that there was going to be increased mental health training. For police, one of the most dangerous situations they encounter is domestic violence. And I'm wondering what you're thinking and what you're hearing from them about how we can reduce domestic violence, and that also the unfortunate role that police have to play may be done even better and with more protection for them and for the families.
Yeah, it's too bad. Commissioner Saltzman just had to leave to catch a plane. I knew he was leaving earlier, but he's been a champion of that on our council. And in fact, the Gateway Domestic Violence Center is a joint effort between the city and the county. And that's one of those examples where, even though we have big work to do between the city and the county, figuring out what our long-term roles are and which government should do what and which we're best at, these kinds of partnerships have so far allowed us to do some very good work, and that effort of providing counseling and case management, as well as making sure that we have a team of people in the police bureau and people operating in every precinct who understand the special needs of domestic violence victims and how to deal with special sensitivity when they encounter those crimes or those allegations. So again, it's a partnership of a variety of people, city, county, social services agencies working together. It is a significant part of our police load, and as long as it is, we have to give it special effort. Thanks, Kurt.
Wynn Wakala, City Club member. Thank you for being here, and I want to say thank you to Commissioner McKeel and Dan Saltzman and Loretta Smith and Wyden, all the people who have been working on human trafficking. And one of my concerns is that, from what I understand, Portland has more exotic businesses per capita than any other large city in Oregon, in the United States, including Las Vegas. But it has to be done at a city level rather than a state level as far as restricting where businesses are so the children aren't walking past them on their way to school. So I wondered what you would hope to do, and also I hope you will continue to support the funding at the Portland Police for Human Trafficking Unit and also the shelter, and I would just love to know what your efforts are going to be in that direction. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. Actually, I'm afraid that the situation might be almost the opposite of what you described, and that is under the Oregon Constitution, with its very generous provisions about free speech, and with what authority exists in state law versus locally, that local governments are relatively limited in what we can do in regulating this industry, and the ability to zone out certain kinds of businesses, let's say the sex industry, from certain locations is actually very difficult, and we are largely checked from that. This is an ongoing issue in terms of how much local control the legislature allows cities and counties to take on issues like this. For example, I was at the Oregon Liquor Control Commission hearing yesterday, and the question about what are the hours of bars? How many of them can be in a neighborhood? Can we have outdoor seating that allows people to continue making noise in the neighborhood till 1 o'clock in the morning? These details of how urban life works and whether it makes any sense at all for an adult bookstore to be right down the street from a school or anything else. There's an ongoing tension between the city and the legislature. And as I said to the commission yesterday, I will continue to be, and I know we as a council are, this is an issue that Commissioner Fritz has put a lot of time into, we will be advocating for more local control of those kinds of authorities. We'll take the heat from the varying constituencies on the issue, but we want the legislature to, in general, give us the tools to do our job and to do it differently in Portland. Portland may be joined with Prineville for school funding, but we're very different places. And where commerce happens differently on the main streets of our neighborhoods than it does maybe in the small downtown of the Dalles or Pendleton. So we want that authority from the legislature to take on the issue that you described and others like it and not be told that we're prescribed by state law.
Dr. Sarah Stebbins, City Club member. Mayor Hales, thank you so much for being here today. What I know about social contracts is that they represent change. And if change is going to be effective, it means involvement of all stakeholders. I would like to know what kind of innovative ideas are going to come out of your office for promoting citizen involvement, because the more citizens are involved, the easier things get.
Well, one of the things that we did well, I think, in the development of this budget, we have more budget hearings to come, is that we went out not with pro forma exercises to our citizens, but around the city with very open-ended budget discussions where people got to come in and advocate for their priorities and tell us what mattered to them. And I commend our council for long nights and a lot of active listening and literally hundreds of people who got to come and have their say. And my sense of that was we did really ventilate that for a lot of people. A lot of people got to have their say. Well, then there needs to be more constructive and sophisticated engagement than that. And one of the tasks ahead for us as a city is to figure out what the next chapter of our system of neighborhood associations and civic involvement structures is. We have this great new diversity and civic leadership program attempting to reach out to communities of color, new Portlanders, other folks that aren't necessarily the traditional participants in our public involvement system. I think all of us want to refresh that. Not throw out what works, but understand Portland is a very different and more diverse place than we were 10 or 20 years ago. And we want people to genuinely be involved, not just have a pro forma hearing where we pretend to be listening, but really be heard and then have a chance to make a difference in their neighborhood. And back to the social contract. One of the things we do as Portlanders is we get involved. I mean, we form more nonprofits per square mile, I think, than anywhere in the country. But they take on things. They take on neighborhood street fairs or planting trees or taking care of homeless kids. And we want to make sure that we open the doors for all those new Portlanders and all those young people that Nancy and I were with last week to say, oh yeah, it's cool to get involved and give back some of my time to the community. So it's not just a city job for us to invite in those newcomers. All of us need to do that, but we need to look at our own structures and make sure that we're reaching that ideal of more new people coming in and making a difference. Thank you.
Let me read a question that came from one of the audience members. I am a recent graduate from Portland Public Schools District, and I appreciate your work in securing funds for education. However, I wanted to know how closely you would be working with our school districts to ensure that this money improves our education. Also, will you support replicating successful school models here in Portland?
Very good question. And there's a relationship of constructive tension between me as the mayor and the school districts within our city, some of which are represented here today. And that is, we have independently elected school boards. Some of their members are here. They have a responsibility. They're elected by the citizens to run the schools, and they appoint administrators to do so. But I and every other Portlander that I represent has a stake in the outcomes. I have a stake in raising graduation rates. And when I look at models like what has been accomplished at Roosevelt High School in raising graduation rates, I say to Carol Smith, how do we do more of that? When I look at David Douglas High School and their ability to continue having shop and technical education for all of their students, helping to support those young manufacturers that I just mentioned. I want to turn to Carol and to other superintendents and say, how do we have more of that kind of career and technical education for the kids that will be the engine of that part of our economy? So we have a relationship of helping to set standards and goals, partnership to make it happen through what we do, whether it's Sun Schools operating in partnership for after-school programs or connections to employers. But I'll always respect the boundary that they run the schools, but I represent every citizen in Portland, and every citizen in Portland has a goal for their kids to get a great education and for these schools to succeed. So to me, that's the line, that's the partnership. So I'll continue to attend to the issues of education, even though just like every other mayor, it's not in my job description, it's not in the city council's job description, but it matters to us all.
Peter Fenner, member of City Club. You spoke about the amazing people that you and Nancy met with the other day and the gem that we have in South Waterfront. I'm now told, and I haven't been told by you or anybody like that yet, but that the Greenway work that was started last year will not be finished this year, that the dock will not be built. So the only thing we've gotten down there so far is something we didn't want, which was a jail next to the school. I wondered if you could comment about that.
Well, the Greenway will be built. It's part of not only the social contract, but the development plan for that district. To some extent, building it will rely on development occurring on the remaining vacant parcels because we're depending on tax increment financing coming from the development of that district to pay for the things that we all expect and have required to be there. So that's why getting something happening in the remaining unbuilt parcels in the South Waterfront is important, not just to finishing the plan and creating more employment, but to building the public works and the public infrastructure, especially the Greenway.
And an egg issue.
Yes. Thank you.
If I may, another written question. Mr. Mayor, how do we strike the balance between Portland's downtown business community and our existing transient community?
I mentioned that this issue of, you said transient, yes, I want to make sure I heard you correctly. This issue of homelessness and panhandling is a serious problem and a serious challenge for our community. 1,700 people will sleep outside tonight. Tonight, not such a terrible night, but that was the case in February and November as well. So that's unacceptable to us as a community. And we're a place that wants to make a difference and do the right thing for homeless people. And we will. But we also have to have civility in our streets and have downtown and all of our neighborhoods be welcoming places for people to shop and visit. And we know that we don't have that balance right now, that we have such a prevalence of homelessness and panhandling, particularly downtown, that it's causing an economic problem and a livability problem for all of us, as well as an unacceptable risk to life of those people that are out there on the street. So this is an issue that I plan to put a lot of time and attention to once we've put this difficult budget to bed.
David Margulis, City Club member. Mayor, as a merchant with 15 employees, last year the mounted patrol of the police saved our hide when they broke up a drug deal and then chased the person several blocks, and he ran into our store and ended up in our store, and they captured him. Now, he makes our employees feel safer and our guests feel safe and welcome downtown. What can you do to help keep the police mounted patrol in the budget and operating downtown?
Well, I'm not going to tip my hand on any particular piece of the budget, although you're not the only one who's tried here this afternoon. But we're making hard choices, and not all of them, they're not all opportunities to improve city government. In some cases, we'll have to stop doing things that we like, and not just downtown. So our commitment is we're going to, again, try to do that in the most humane possible way to both the community and to our employees. One of the issues with the mounted patrol is not the horses themselves, although we all love them, but there are a number of police officer positions assigned to that function. So if we're reducing police officer positions in the city, which we will do in this budget, then where do we reduce them? Difficult trade-offs for the chief, for his command staff who are here, and for all of us as a community. So we're trying to do this passionately and dispassionately at the same time. I love this city, and so does the rest of our city council. We're here in these offices because we believe in this place, and we're proud of Portland. But we also have to do what no one likes to do, which is do a little less of good things that we're already doing. And do, again, make those cuts in the most humane way. So that's where we're coming from. No one will be happy with everything that we do in this budget.
We have run out of time for further questions, and we'll have to stop for the day. Please join us next week for a discussion on immigration reform with Congressman Kurt Schrader. And as we close for today, Please join me in offering our sincere thanks to Mayor Charlie Hales. Thank you. We're adjourned.